Good morning, everybody. Hi, everybody. Can everybody at the back hear me okay? Yep, got a thumbs up. Awesome. It's very nice to see you all today. Welcome to our special member and partner exclusive event featuring EnergyAustralia. Pointing here because this is where the guys are sitting. Today I will be your MC, and I would like to begin the event by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we come here to meet upon today, the Dharawal people, who remain the traditional custodians of this land. And I would like to acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Tanya Brown, for being here today and also for giving the opening address in a few minutes' time. Of course, as everybody walked in, you would have all been greeted by the wonderful Ray and Debbie of Illawarra Security Guards. Ray and Debbie, are you in the room at the moment? Pointing? For some reason, they're getting themselves ready. They're coming in. Well, let's give them a round of applause now to thank them. Here they are, fantastic. And at our last breakfast that we held, I was lucky enough to announce a few new members, and I'm proud to say that our wonderful network is growing so much that we actually sold out today and we couldn't fit more people in this room, which is great. So we have already welcomed the people on this side at the last meeting, and so for our newest members, what I'll do is I'll just embarrass you briefly, so if you can just stand up when I say your company name so people can see who you are, that would be great. So a very warm welcome to Bisalloy Steels. Glenn Cooper is here today. Welcome, Glenn. Nikki Bowman was a late apology. She just messaged me this morning, so but welcome, Nikki, and definitely next time she's here, we'll give her a clap, but welcome, Nikki. Very new member, Streamlined Energy. So we've got Brett Cleaves here from Streamlined Energy. Welcome, Brett. And at the last i3net breakfast, we were lucky enough to hear from Corgas from Wodek and Jakubik, and Wodek and Corgas have since joined i3net. So Wodek, welcome. There you are. And in very exciting update, so of course we're all here to hear from EnergyAustralia today, and EnergyAustralia have joined i3net as corporate partners. So welcome, EnergyAustralia. And so we have Sarah, Ivan and Paul here today. Thank you all so much. I would also like to take this opportunity as well to congratulate Peter Masterton. Peter received an award for Public Service Medal in the 2021 Queen Birthday Honours. So I wanted to congratulate Peter for that. So before I bring our Deputy Lord Mayor up, could I just get everyone just to double check that your phones are on silent, please? If anybody needs to use the bathrooms are just outside this door here. And if there is an emergency and we need to leave the room, out the front of these doors here is the first place that we will need to assemble. If for some reason we can't get out that way, it's behind the building is where we need to go. Okay, so if we have no more questions and we're ready to go, then what I will do is officially open the event. I would like to welcome our Deputy Lord Mayor of Wollongong City, Councillor Tanya Brown, to the microphone.
Thanks, Bianca. Good morning, everyone. I feel like this is my new favourite venue. I seem to be here every 2 days lately, which is great. Bianca asked me to talk a bit about what's going on in Wollongong at the moment, and I think at top of the list has to be UCI. The UCI World Cycling Championships are coming to Wollongong in September 22, and I would be very surprised if you hadn't heard that already. A lot of focus of council has been around gearing up for that event, and just last week they launched their new brand campaign. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go and look at Wollongong 2022, because it is the best marketing for Wollongong that I've ever seen. Don't tell Mark Slate, Destination Wollongong, I said that. But it showcases our region like you have never seen, and that is going to a global audience. We're expecting 300,000 will be coming to Wollongong for that event alone. And you will have seen that the city is gearing up for that. There's obviously a bit of angst in the community out there about dedicated cycle paths on roads. Change is always difficult, but I think every global city has cycleways, and that's something we're going to have to adjust to. But you can see the cycleways going in. There's a new Criterion track coming for Unanderra. Cringilla Hills is getting mountain bike paths. Just last week, the state government finally got their act together and announced money for walking tracks and for cycling paths. And I think that's long-term legacy infrastructure that's going to benefit our community, in that people will come back to ride the UCI track for years and years to come. So that's going to have, as I say, a long-term economic benefit for us. The other big thing that I've been working on has been the COVID-19 Peak Bodies Task Force. I called for that task force back in February, and in June we finally had our first meeting, and I appreciated that i3net were participating. And in that room we talked a bit about the other peak bodies. Work has been going on. RDA has been doing a bit, IBC have been working on capturing skills shortages, where the job losses have been. Obviously tourism and hospitality has taken a big burden of that, and the university sector, of which I work, and took a pay cut and lost staff, and that's been a very tough time. And the only thing that will save that is international students coming back in. So let's hope that starts to happen. So while we did a bit of a literature review of what everyone's working on, the conversation soon turned to what do we need to do to bulletproof our economy. And I've called before for the decentralisation of jobs, not just private sector jobs, but government jobs. And I think we've seen over COVID, work from home is great for a while, but it does wear thin, and I worry about the mental health aspects for staff, productivity dropping. But Wollongong is so perfectly placed to be a hybrid hub. Instead of commuting to your Sydney CBD location, you could work out of Wollongong a few days, still have your Fridays at home in the gong. That's what I love, to work from home on a Friday. But I think we need to find that happy medium, and we're really well placed to do that. The other thing that came out of the discussion was the skills shortage. We all know there's a lot of buzz around the region about energy and gas infrastructure and hydrogen, and that's fantastic, but where are the skills going to come from? We know we have an ageing workforce. Dare I say it, the baby boomers are retiring. They told me they've had enough of jobs. I had one guy say to me last night, "Stop talking about jobs, my wife will give me more." So we know we've got to find pathways for younger people to look at those manufacturing trades. We need the boilermakers, the plumbers, the welders. We have to make that sexy again. All that, and of course I work at Smart Infrastructure, which is very much about the smart intelligence and AI. And I'll just end on one note. It's not been formally announced yet, but Smart and UOW partnered with Telstra, and we just won a grant for 1.7 million to set up a Telstra UOW Artificial Intelligence of Things hub at the university, and i3net supported that. So thank you to all of you for helping. That'll certainly help Smart Infrastructure in the next few years, as we will be able to recruit more researchers. But that's looking at, as I say, artificial intelligence. So we've got that sexy robotic side, but we need to make sure we've got the manufacturing side as well. So there'll be more information coming out on that. I said that's with my smart hat. But thank you all for having me today, and I can't wait to hear more from EnergyAustralia. Thank you.
I would now like to, actually before I welcome our next speaker, I should just note on the tables at the moment you do have some food. You can start eating that food. We do have some warm things that will come out later, but you can break open your muffin and your juices and everything. So I would now like to welcome Ivan Currie, who's the asset leader at Tallawarra Power Station, to the microphone. Ivan will be giving his presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for people to ask questions at the end of it. So thanks, Ivan.
Well, I'll start off. I think we've already acknowledged the Darawal people, but I'll do it again. So Tallawarra Station is on the traditional country of the Darawal peoples. Before we get on to talking about the exciting new project Tallawarra B, we get to talk about Tallawarra A. And I'm the asset leader for Tallawarra A, so it's where my heart is. I thought I'd start off with a couple of interesting facts about Tallawarra A, because I don't think it's got a very high profile, but maybe it should. And Tallawarra A is the most thermally efficient power station in Australia, and if you didn't know that, that's one more reason to be proud of the Illawarra region. It's also the second biggest gas turbine in Australia. And so if you were to imagine the biggest aeroplane turbines you can think of, so a 777 and those engines that a person can stand inside of, if you think about 4 of those at maximum thrust sitting on the runway full of people, that's what Tallawarra A is. So it's 4 of the biggest aeroplane engines in the world combined. Another interesting fact is Tallawarra Power Station doesn't have black start capability. So in order for us to start the station, we have to suck a lot of power out of the grid to spin that turbine up. And it's almost the equivalent of another small power station that we need to start Tallawarra A. For those of you that don't know EnergyAustralia, so we're one of the largest gentailers, so that means we're a retailer and generator. We're all across South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. I do believe we have customers now in Queensland, and we've got the Kidston Pumped Hydro project that's now kicking off in Queensland as well. We've got coal, gas and wind and batteries now, and we do have some power purchase agreements for solar farms as well. About 2,500 employees, and our head office is in Melbourne. For those of you that don't know where Tallawarra is, so Princes Highway on the left there, and this is in red. This is all the land that EnergyAustralia owns in that area. The power station there is that white dot. And you can sort of see old dam infrastructure from the old coal-fired station that used to be on the site. So the original Tallawarra Power Station was owned by I think it was Pacific Power, the state government. It was 320 megawatts, and you can see it takes up quite a big footprint there. And EnergyAustralia purchased it in 2003, and it already had an approval for a 400 megawatt combined cycle gas turbine. So we built a combined cycle gas turbine, and for those that aren't familiar with it, it means it's a gas turbine and a heat recovery boiler on the back. So we take all the exhaust gas from a gas turbine, turn it into steam, and we drive steam turbines. And that's what makes us the most efficient plant in Australia. The electricity market has changed a lot. I arrived at Tallawarra 10 years ago. It's changed a lot since then, and it's ever changing. Even the last 3 or 4 years, every year it's different. But there was a big fundamental shift in 2016, and that's when gas exports started in Queensland and the gas price raised significantly. And that's by far and away our biggest input cost. So it really changed our short-run marginal cost and changed the way we generate electricity. We've got 34 full-time staff, and that means that we've got operators 24/7 manning and running the station. But it does mean that we're basically just minimum manned enough to operate and do minor maintenance. And we have an annual community grant sponsorship and donations program. You won't be able to read that, so I might just describe it. So combined cycle, that means that, yep, we've got a gas turbine, a generator and 3 steam turbines, and Tallawarra is a fairly unique station in that it's all on one big long shaft with a clutch in the middle. And then the heat recovery boiler on the back. We're cooled by Lake Illawarra, so we take Lake Illawarra seawater, and it comes once through the station and then out. We add, on average, 3 degrees to that water as it comes through. But we have a 1 kilometre long outlet canal, and by the time it reaches the end of that outlet canal, it's down to about 1 degree above ambient. And so that's a big part of our operation, is managing the salt water, making sure we have as low impact on fish, jellyfish, seagrass colonies as much as possible. I've got a chart up here, and this is our last 3 days of generation at Tallawarra. And this last 2 weeks has been very different for us. So you probably might have heard, sorry, moving away from the microphone, you probably might have heard about the failure up at Callide Power Station. So because we're a national electricity market, we're connected all the way from South Australia up through Queensland. That means that any trouble in any one of those states or markets will have a big impact everywhere. And so the failure of a unit at Callide was felt very strongly here and even in Victoria. And then as well in the last week, we've had flooding in the Latrobe Valley, and Yallah mine is flooded. So Yallah, which is one of the biggest power stations in Victoria, is down to 1 unit. So Tallawarra is running very hard to cover for those 2 scenarios. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's some dark grey patches on that chart, and that's night time. And so you'll see Tallawarra ramps up for an afternoon peak, and then down, and then sometimes pops up for a morning peak, and basically gets out of the way of solar in the middle of the day, and then the very low prices in the middle of the night. And so that's one thing about Tallawarra, is it's a very flexible plant. So we can ramp from 190 megawatts up to 440 very quickly, and then straight back down to get out of the way of low prices or anything else. It also means that we're able to respond to market events very quickly. So for example, when the Callide unit had that failure, we were called immediately to come on, and we ramped up to full load straight away to avoid blackouts and grid instability. I guess the same thing happened, when did the bushfires happen? Time's a blur, but in that January, we had the fires come through the Snowies, and a transformer in the Snowies blew up, and it essentially meant that Victoria separated from New South Wales in an instant, and we had 1,000 megawatts of load that was coming from Victoria towards New South Wales disappear in an instant. And Tallawarra was called on to start immediately, and we ramped up to full load, and the feedback from our team was that that essentially saved, rolling blackouts. So Tallawarra is 440 megawatts. That's enough for about 200,000 homes of electricity. So it can make a significant impact when it needs to. We're fairly fast start. We're not as fast start as the Tallawarra B, for example. And so that's another bit of the flexibility we'll have in our back pocket when Tallawarra B is here. How we would normally run, if it's not in these past couple of weeks, is we would run for the afternoon peak. So we would come on at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon as the load is starting to creep up. And then as solar starts to drop off, that's when Tallawarra really needs to go to maximum load. And we would stay there up until 10, 11 p.m. at night, midnight, and then come off and stay off until the next morning. And that's when our markets team would be looking at the market and saying, okay, what's the electricity market doing? Need to make a decision about buying gas, and then we might come up for the next afternoon peak as well. So generally how we're running at the moment is Monday to Friday afternoon peaks, and then off in between. One point that's worth making is, and this goes to the decision around Tallawarra B and why it might have taken some time, is the national electricity market is always changing. So when Tallawarra A was built, it was 2009, it's a different time. Since then, we've had the carbon tax, and we've had, the price on carbon, I should say. We've also had the gas export start. I don't think any of those were envisaged when the business case for Tallawarra A was made. And now, even in the last 3 years, what we've seen with the relentless installation of solar, all sorts of other things happening within the market, it's very hard to predict the future. And so that's why I think it's excellent that EnergyAustralia has made the decision to make a long-term investment in Tallawarra B, because it's very hard to make investment decisions in a changing market. Just to talk about maintenance, We have a maintenance outage every year at Tallawarra. It's just the way we try and maintain our reliability and availability. That's the most important thing for us. We may not run all the time, but we do need to be available to run all the time. Every year we're having roughly a 3-week outage. We would like to have shorter outages, but that's just how it's turning out at the moment. So for this year we're having a 3-week outage in August. Next year a 3-week outage in September. We've got 2 weeks booked for 2024, and then a major outage booked for 2024, which will be somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. We haven't figured that out yet. That depends on the scope of work. But apart from that, because we're moving to a more flexible type of operation, we're really trying to get as much maintenance done outside of outages as we can. So opportunity work. So we're really trying to plan work and have it ready to go for periods where we might get told, okay, there's a huge amount of wind in the market at the moment. You guys are probably not needed. You can take 2 or 3 days to get a job done if you need to. Major outages, they occur based on the gas turbine operating hours. So it's like a car when it comes due for its service. That's when we need to take it offline. And when we're running flat out, that happens every 3 years. When we're not running so often, it happens every 5 years. So 2024 will be 5 years for us. And that's when a major overhaul of the gas turbine happens. Now, because that can't happen any faster than 35 days, we also take that as an opportunity to get a heap of other maintenance done at the same time. And so we essentially try and limp through with any problems we're having until we have these maintenance periods. As I said before, it's a small team, 34 or 35 people. So that means that we really do need to rely on assistance from skills from outside of our organisation and contractors in order to get a lot of our work done. We really do only have enough people just to operate and minor maintenance on the station. That's the end.
Don't go anywhere because we were going to get some questions from the audience, so I might just go back so everyone can stay there. Thank you, Ivan. That was excellent. So questions, please. While you're thinking of, we've got one at the back, but while I walk up to David, if people would like to get involved in this work, we've got so many great members in the room, how do they go about doing that? Answer that one for me.
Yeah, the best person to get in contact would be me. Yeah. And I think my contact details have been provided, have they?
Perfect. We'll definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will send around your contact details.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Hi, Ivan. David Bridge from BPS and also Deputy Chair. Thank you for that introduction on Tallawarra A. Obviously there's a lot of skills within the room here from our member companies, and Bianca actually just touched on who do we get in contact with. Those outages you have, or the services that you might need on a regular basis, do you get them from outside the region, or are you now looking towards trying to in-source them within the Illawarra?
So COVID's been a very interesting experience for us. Last year we did an outage in September, and we've done one again in March this year, and we're having another one in August this year.
Yeah.
And each one of those has needed skills from outside of Australia. So there's been some very specialised work that's happened.
Yep.
And it's been a real challenge because we really haven't been able to get anyone to fly. So as much as we tried at the last minute, they always fell over. And it's really made us take a look at where we're using our contractors from. And I think that's been a really positive thing because it's made us look more locally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we've got a big gap at Tallawarra is we've basically carried on with contractors that we knew from construction, and they might have been mobilised from all over Australia rather than locally. And we've gone with what we're familiar with, so long as the price seems reasonable.
Yep.
But I think we've missed out then on the type of relationship you can have with a local resource, where it can be a lot more back and forth and a lot easier in terms of flexibility.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a real focus for me and my team going forward, because as the plant gets older, the maintenance requirements are going up, the projects are getting more complex. The planning of those projects is not something we've done really well in the past, and it has bitten us a couple of times. So we've identified that project management is an area that we really need to lift our game. And then we are relying really heavily on a few key people at site and their technical skills. And I think they really need to be able to test their technical skills with someone else and so around some of these ideas on projects and project management.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was only having conversations with my team this week that we need help, but we don't know anyone we can go to for help.
Well, that's the bit.
Yep.
Within the room here, and look, just one thing, just in closing my question, having quite the industrial base here, the skill set is actually quite unique, and there's other projects that have actually come into the Illawarra, and recognise the fact that the industry base here has got quite broad skills that are quite transferable. And of course, after the GFC back in 2009-10, a lot of the industries here, as BlueScope went through a difficult period, they went out and sort of branched out and worked within other industries. So they've actually really broadened their skills in the last 10 years. So within the Illawarra region, we're actually quite proud of the fact that we've been able to get out there and use the skills that were traditionally used here in the Illawarra, but used elsewhere around, around Australia. So they're very unique skills. So I think within the Illawarra, I think there's a lot in which Illawarra can contribute to EnergyAustralia with your asset.
Yep.
And I'm sure all the members here would look forward to making a beeline to you to help out.
Yeah, no, well, I think it would work well for both of us. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks, David. Questions? Zara?
Thank you very much. I think I have a question and also a solution to what you were saying again. We've got a lot of local industry here with a lot of capabilities here. Just the question is here, how far are you planning ahead when, for example, when these shortages are required and then you would want to fill in this gap? How far are you planning ahead, and what strategies and tools have you been using, for example, to come up with this problem that you have? Because at University of Wollongong, we are offering this, what we call a supply chain generator lab as well, where we're helping with whatever we have at our exposure, like research excellence and some of the solution that we have to help businesses such as yourself, to find out what areas that they need to improve and how, for example, in their supply chain, and how they can, work more effectively. And then we would like our big businesses to also identify businesses in local, for example, in here, that they will come together, and then we would look at the problems that you have, and then the solution that our members can provide as well, and what university can do that to upskills the something that this region might not have to be able to qualify to provide services as well. So the question is, what are the strategy that you use, and are you willing to work with University of Wollongong closer to find solution to this problem?
Yeah, so we're very much finding our feet, I think, in this. The plant's 10 years old, and so for quite a while it was new and shiny and didn't have many problems. And we were quite reliant on the OEM, who at the time was Alstom but now is GE, because a lot of the problems were with their kit or was under warranty or something like that. And so we transitioned from that to a period where in 2016 it very much looked like Tallawarra Power Station might be shut down altogether. And just to say how much the market's changed, I think 2017 was one of our best years ever. So they went from looking at shutting us down to us having one of our best years within 12 months. Yep. So the electricity market is changing a huge amount all the time. We're now looking at least 3 years in advance in detail. So we do a detailed 3-year plan, and then we're doing a fairly high-level 10-year plan on our maintenance. In terms of identifying where there's skills gaps, though, we're not at that level of detail, and so that's something we need to improve. And I think one thing, I've got an excellent team of very dedicated and talented people, but they do try and take it all on themselves. and I need to try and stop them from doing that because it's too much work. But that's where I'm trying to get them to look outside of Tallawarra and look around at what's in the local area. So I think there's definitely opportunities there.
Definitely. So I think we're here, like, as again, I'm wearing both hats, both with i3net and University of Wollongong as well. And I think, you know, with solutions that we have as well, there's no reason like to, you know, if you think that it's beneficial to plan that far ahead, we're here, like myself and Bianca and i3net and University of Wollongong, to be able to offer a solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Any other questions? Jim? We've got some up the back too.
Ivan, I'm Jim Allen. I'm from Soto Consulting Engineers. Nice to chat to you a little earlier. But just on the key dates and the tie-ins that are to come, could you give us some clarity as to what your key dates of operational needs would be?
I can give you, I won't steal any thunder from Paul, but I'll tell you operational date for Tallawarra B is 1st of November 2023. And so that's when Paul will give it a shine and hand the keys over to me. And I get to run the station from there. But I think construction starts in September this year. And any of those other dates I might leave to Paul because I'll probably mess them up. But
Fantastic. With the engineering tie-ins, a lot of this equipment will be coming from overseas. How do you see some of the local content being added to your operation?
Again, I might leave that one for Paul. He's more over the B project than I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Look forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Jim. Great. Other questions? Any hands up? Am I missing anybody? No? Excellent. I think you might be off the hook. Thank you so much,
thank you.
Ivan. Appreciate that. It was a great presentation. So I will now hand you over to Paul Farnworth. Paul is the Project Director of Tallawarra B Project. Again, like after Ivan's presentation, we will be asking questions of Paul, so make sure you think of some tough questions for him, and we can ask once he's finished. So thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you, and thanks to Ivan for setting me up nicely earlier. So I guess just to clarify the division of responsibility between Ivan and myself, Ivan obviously is very a passionate owner of the Tallawarra A station. You could tell you know, his love for the station when he talked this morning. I'm responsible for the delivery of Tallawarra B, so the new asset. And I will be handing it over to Ivan in 2.5 years' time, hopefully. And I'm hoping he'll be as passionate about that when he gets it as he is about the one he's already got. So just to give you a bit of an overview of what we're doing, you can see a nice aerial shot of the existing power station down at the bottom of the page there. The existing power station over to the right, I think from all of the shots we had from Ivan earlier, you can sort of recognise that, and you've got Lake Illawarra in the background. You've got the substation that the existing power plant connects into in the foreground there. It's owned and operated by Endeavour Energy. And the new plant is going to be built off to the left there. So we've got a little yellow hatched out box that the new plant will sit in. And it actually looks not dissimilar to what's already there, albeit we're an open cycle gas turbine power station, not combined cycle. But to all intents and purposes, from a distance, it will look quite similar and sits in the same orientation. So our stack will be over to the left of the picture again. So there'll be two nice, sort of a nice symmetry there. And we'll connect into the existing Endeavour Energy switchyard. So you can just see there's an empty space at the end of the switchyard towards the left there. So we're going to build some new infrastructure there that will connect into that switchyard. So one of the values of building a plant like this at Tallawarra A is all the existing infrastructure. We've got water, we've got electricity, we've got people and knowledge. So it all adds up to how this project makes sense from a business case perspective. As we note at the top of the screen there, Australia's first net zero emissions hydrogen and gas capable power plant. So how do we do that? It's basically a standard open cycle gas turbine. For those that aren't familiar with the terminology, Ivan talked about combined cycle. That's Tallawarra A. So they've got a big gas turbine, you know, four of those big aero jet engines in one turbine. Waste heat from that is captured in a boiler, generates steam, and then you've got a steam turbine cycle. So relatively complex and a very efficient plant. The plant that I'll be installing is just the gas turbine. So it's just the big aero engine effectively. No steam cycle on the back end. The consequences of that, we don't have the efficiency of Tallawarra A. But what we do have is other benefits. We'll be a very fast start machine. So actually Tallawarra A is very flexible for a combined cycle, but Tallawarra B will be able to start very quickly. So where Ivan is talking about running the plant at a low level through a lot of the day and then ramping up to peak load for those afternoon peaks, Tallawarra B will sit there idle, effectively not doing anything for protracted periods of the day, and we'll just start it up from nothing to 316 megawatts. So that's the maximum capacity of the plant when the market demands it. So we might run 2-4 hours in the afternoon and then come off again. So we sacrifice the efficiency for that sort of extreme level of flexibility. And Ivan was talking about how Tallawarra A is the second largest gas turbine in Australia. I think at the time it was installed, it was the largest. Origin Energy came and installed some turbines at Mortlake in Victoria that are slightly larger, but we're going to beat them again because Tallawarra B, when it goes in, will be the largest engine by some margin in Australia. So I don't know, size is important to us, so we like to point that out. And I think, as everybody's probably aware, one of the features of Tallawarra B is this hydrogen firing. So the plant was actually developed as a conventional natural gas-fired power plant. But in order to effectively get the whole project across the line, we opened the door to hydrogen. When we looked into it, our OEM, so GE, will be supplying the gas turbine. They're very keen. They do have a lot of hydrogen experience. They've got plant that already runs on high hydrogen mixed fuels. They're keen to develop it. They obviously see that's a way of, the future for their gas turbines. It's a way of extending the life of their existing fleet and putting new turbines in. They're keen. They do have a lot of knowledge. They convinced us that they knew what they were doing. They've got all of the science behind it. So in the first instance, when Tallawarra B goes into operation late in 2023, we will basically be able to fire 5% in the fuel mix, so 5% by volume. So we'll be able to inject hydrogen into the natural gas. Basically, it's fed into the machine the way it would always be. The machine doesn't care. It'll take 100% natural gas, or it'll take 95% natural gas and 5% hydrogen. And beyond that, there aren't actually too many technical difficulties in achieving that. I guess the most challenging thing about that is that actually even only 5% of the fuel mix is a significant volume of hydrogen. For those that maybe are somewhat familiar with hydrogen, we at full load will burn about 400 kilograms a second. If you extrapolate that out in terms of hydrogen production in Australia, it's a significant amount of demand. So what we actually aim to do is produce a sort of a significant commercial user of hydrogen, in the hope that sort of stimulates and develops the hydrogen economy and hydrogen infrastructure. And assuming that is successful over the life of the plant, so we go into service in 2023, the plant's designed for a 30-year life, could be operating into the 2050s. We have a plan, a roadmap that says over the life of this asset we'll gradually increase the amount of hydrogen we're firing. GE are confident that we can go to 30% without significant challenges. There's more challenges on the hydrogen side, but from a turbine side, maybe to 60%, slightly more challenge again, but very doable. And over time really targeting the ability to do 100% hydrogen. So I don't know whether we'll get there because that would require a very, very mature hydrogen economy. But we certainly we have a roadmap that could take us to 100% hydrogen firing in that sort of 30-year life cycle. I think we've hit on all of the key metrics, most of the key metrics. 316 megawatts, so it's a big turbine. We talked about net zero. So one feature of this plant, it's an efficient gas turbine, so it's got relatively low emissions, relatively low amounts of CO2. That's the only really notable pollutant that the plant produces. It runs for a relatively small amount of time, so we're not talking about significant volumes of CO2. But what we've committed to is also that for all of the CO2 we produce through the life of the plant, we will offset that. So we're basically looking to purchase carbon offsets, which means somebody else is effectively absorbing carbon somewhere. We'll pay them for the privilege of the carbon that we emit. So that's how we, albeit small amounts of CO2 that we actually produce, that's how we'll achieve that net zero emissions. We kick off construction in September. I've already talked about GE is the OEM. What we went out to market for some years ago was a lump sum turnkey job. We talked to the turbine manufacturers because there aren't many of them, so they're the obvious people to talk to in the first place. GE was one of those. In order to come up with a turnkey offering, they've partnered with Clough. So GE will effectively supply all of the gas turbine equipment and they will commission it. Clough will install it, design and deliver the balance of plant and basically manage the construction side of things. As I say, we kick off in September this year. We're actually looking to get into commissioning early 2023 with the aim that we could be operational as early as August, and our sort of long stop date or drop dead date is 1st of November, which is what Ivan referred to earlier. We anticipate that we could peak at around 250 construction jobs through the course of the delivery. It's a sort of a 27 to 30 month delivery program from September this year, and as I said, start this year, and we're aiming to finish in 2023. I think most people are aware of where we're at. Yallah, off of Yallah Bay Road, next to Lake Illawarra. It's a 316 megawatt open cycle gas turbine. I mentioned earlier, one of the key features of this plant, the reasons for going for open cycle rather than combined cycle, one, it's cheaper, so there is an economic benefit. But in open cycle mode, we can start much faster. So we've got a 25-minute start, which in terms of chasing those afternoon peaks is really important. You need to, when the market demands it, you need to be there very quickly. Otherwise, you've missed the opportunity. We talk about contributing $300 million to the New South Wales economy. I think it's probably out there that the value of the EPC contract is around, actually the cost to EnergyAustralia is around $250 million. In relation to the hydrogen part of the business case, the whole viability of the project hinges on is that funding from New South Wales Government. And features of that funding include things like the requirement for carbon offsets and the hydrogen component of the project. As I said, there's a side elevation of the power plant, so you can sort of see that it looks vaguely like the pictures of Tallawarra A that you've already seen. Just going from the left-hand side of that picture, you can see, well, maybe you can see the green structure on the left. The upper green structure is the air intake filter, so we're basically sucking in just standard regular air. There's a filter house out there to take any solids out. That feeds into the compressor of the gas turbine, so the green box in the middle basically houses the compressor and the gas turbine. And basically, once the gas has been burnt in the combustion zone, expanded through the power turbine, it's basically just exhausted straight out to atmosphere via the stack. The generator is actually over on the left-hand side, so there's a shaft that connects the generator to the turbine. Turbine rotates the generator. Generator produces electricity. And another feature of an unusual feature of our plant is at the top of the stack there, you can see a device that's labelled PDD. That's a plume dispersion device. So one of the issues that we had to overcome during the development is the velocity of the exhaust gas is quite high, because this is just an open cycle gas turbine. It's like a jet engine just firing into the atmosphere. In order to make sure that we weren't presenting an undue hazard to aviation, we committed to reducing the stack velocity, and that is effectively just a device that takes the single plume, fires it out in 12 horizontal sections, and that's sufficient basically to break the plume up and make sure that we're reducing the velocity at the heights that would impact local aviation. You can see over on the left that we've got a few information sessions this week. I'm guessing we're going to repeat this this story at those. So just for information, that's part of the process, is engagement with the local community. So, and I think. No, we've got so this is a slide from GE, who are the technology supplier. So as we're noting at the top, first dual fuel gas and hydrogen power plant. They reliably tell us they have designed and installed a similar plant. There isn't one in operation yet. There are some 7FF gas turbines, the US equivalent, going in America. So they're a little way ahead of us in terms of actually building and installing these things, but it's still very new from a global perspective. And as I can't actually read the rest of it, so I'm guessing nobody else can, that's probably the most material piece of information from that particular slide. And just to end on, because I know a lot of people will be interested, so as I've said, we're basically placed a turnkey contract with a consortium of GE and Clough. Clough will effectively be the construction partner, so they're the guys that are going to mobilise to Tallawarra and arrange, for trades to come and build it and subcontract the various components of the construction. So definitely worth, if that's something you're into, definitely worth getting to know Clough. And they advised me, a guy called Ken Axford is their local supply chain manager. He's actually based at Dapto. He will be the supply chain manager for the job. He's keen to hear from people. So if anybody wants to talk to Clough about potential opportunities with the construction, by all means do. And as I say, hopefully the information pack will include that. Having said that, from an EA perspective, whilst we won't be employing to the same levels as Clough, we also have a bunch of work that we need to do between now and September. When Clough mobilise, it's many and varied, and through the construction of these plant, you never know when something's going to come up that you need a local resource or a local expert to come and help you out on something. So myself and EnergyAustralia are also keen to hear from local skill sets, businesses. If you think that you have something you can offer us that might be of use, always interested to hear, because you never know when we might need to take you up on that. And I think that was everything. Thank you very much. Sure.
So much, Paul, for that presentation. You just mentioned then that for any local opportunities, obviously we've got the Ken's details there, but for the opportunities that you just mentioned, will people reach out to you directly? Should we also share your details?
Yes.
Yes, that's permission.
We'll come
excellent.
Up with something. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Okay, so a good accountability. I'll be sharing both of those contact details with everyone here. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask?
So one of the challenges, as I alluded to, is the volumes of hydrogen that we can potentially take. So if we go beyond 5%, I don't think we've got any choice but to put a pipeline in, and then there's the questions about where does the pipeline go, all of that. For the 5% case, particularly when in the early years of operation, it's more a proof of concept. So what we'll be doing is basically setting up a road transport delivery facility. So we're currently doing the concept design, but we're anticipating that we'll be building a facility that can basically receive hydrogen tube trailers. So in the first instance, we'll be accepting hydrogen by road. And that should, I talked about 400 kilograms. I said 400 kilograms a second, didn't I? It's 400 kilograms an hour. So we would use a standard tube trailer, around 1 an hour, one every 45 minutes, 1 an hour. So we think it's doable.
Next question over here.
Yes, Paul Finnerty, Bridge Project Solutions. Paul, you've given us a start date and you've given us an aspirational end date. Between those 2 days, there will be many, many milestones.
Yes.
When do you anticipate that you'll be able to release a schedule of those milestones?
That's a good question. I probably need to run that internally. Obviously, there's a degree of sensitivity with our contractor at the moment. They're very early in the relationship in terms of project execution. Under the EPC contract, they're not due to deliver us a sort of a finalised baseline schedule for another few weeks. So I mean that's going to be the earliest. So where are we now? We're sort of middle of June, late June. So it's probably going to be towards the end of July before we really want to commit to anything. We obviously have a view of how that will, the project will pan out, but we really want the contractor's confirmation of that. So I would say, you know, July, August timeframe will be when we maybe start sharing that more broadly.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question, if I may. I understand that this GE machine is a fleet leader, the 9F05.
Yep.
And I understand it may be built in Asia. Where exactly is that? Do you know?
Actually, so intriguing. I think I heard that the other day. So the gas turbine. So actually, one is the 9F05 is actually an amalgamation of proven parts. So it's the first time that the three components of the turbine will be put together. So there's a 9H turbine, which is well established. There's a 9FA combustion section, which is well established, and then there's a turbine section that's been used. It's just the first time these have gone together. The turbine itself is already being manufactured, so it's actually sitting in the US. It was manufactured in the US. And I know the generator's being manufactured in Poland. In terms of any of the bits that are missing, so in order to make it a fully functional gas turbine plant, there are many and varied pieces of balance of plant equipment. A lot of that will come from Asia. But no, I don't necessarily have insight to that. And from a GE supply chain perspective, they normally have half a dozen plus suppliers for any piece of kit, and they only really land on which one they're going to use when they get to this point in the you know, they've got a signed project and they actually commit the purchase orders. So again, we'll start finding that we will start finding that out over the next few months. So yes, definitely an Asian component, but I couldn't tell you where at the moment.
Thank you.
Are there any challenges that you think will happen on site that you are worried about now that you'd like to share with this audience that maybe this local room can help you with?
Yeah, it's probably you know, some of the people I've had conversations with already, and it's impacting me this week, which is COVID. You know, we did acknowledge the impact of COVID on the project as we went through the development phase. We talked about it at length with our contractor. There are special provisions in the contract that acknowledge COVID and how we behave in the event there are COVID events that impact the project. But we probably had hoped that things were, and things are settling down, which is good, but obviously we know there are continuing to be outbreaks here and there, and they do have an impact on people's ability to travel. So that's a long-standing concern. One of the positive strategies that Clough talked about as we negotiated the contract with them was that they very much wanted to focus on local capability. That was how one of their... Well, they just wanted to do that anyway. They saw that made sense. Mm-hmm. But they also pointed out that was beneficial from a COVID perspective. I know a lot of big, particularly power plant construction projects throughout the COVID outbreak have continued to operate. Very few have shut down. But it does rely on people being available at the site. And consequently, if you're, you know, the bulk of your workforce and the skill set is local, it just takes away the question marks around people's ability to travel. Ivan alluded to it, you know, getting people in from overseas is extremely difficult, but actually sometimes getting people from interstate is a challenge. So I think that's absolutely key. So, you know, Clough will very much be looking to develop the relationships to ensure that they've got as much of the skill set they need locally.
Sure.
And very little from interstate.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Robin?
I'm Robin Johnson from Blend DSQ, environmental consultant. I'm just wondering about hydrogen being relatively new technology. What sort of conversations you're having around emergency planning and work health and safety?
Yeah. So it's still very early days. I think so. Absolutely good point. Those conversations need to be had. Actually, from a planning perspective, we have to go through the loop. What we've got at the moment is a project that's approved for natural gas firing. So over the next 2 or 3 years, we need to look for a development approval modification to acknowledge hydrogen. I think so. Obviously, question marks around hydrogen from a safety perspective. On the one hand, EnergyAustralia has a sort of a different has familiarity with handling hydrogen, as we were talking about yesterday on site. The generator for Tallawarra A is hydrogen cooled, so they have to deliver hydrogen and utilise hydrogen in the operation of the plant for a different reason, and it is much smaller volumes, but there is at least a degree of familiarity with the handling of hydrogen. But that's something we will go through. So we're sort of a concept design phase with particularly Clough responsible for the hydrogen infrastructure design for the project. So that will be, we will be embarking upon a whole lot of hazard identification, HAZOPing of the design process to ensure that we fully understand the risks, and we've got a design that acknowledges those risks and manages them appropriately. But I think in terms of what we envisage in the first instance, we've got experience of delivering hydrogen already, so reasonable degree of confidence, but a lot of work to do.
Great, thank you. Jihad?
Jihad from Coates Hire. Understanding the current need for energy in the market along the East Coast, what percentage impact will Tower B have on the market? And can you foresee a need for another power station in here in New South Wales into the future?
That's veering a little bit off my skill set. I'm very much about designing and building plant. But look, a significant contributor to the business case for Tallawarra B is the closure of Liddell. So the timing is, Liddell is due for full closure early 2023. That goes into the winter period when demand is lower, so not a significant risk for the winter of 23. But as you come into the summer of 23-24 and demand picks up again, that's when you really find out what the impact of Liddell closure has. So our sort of modelling of the potential outcomes there suggests that there's a place for a Tallawarra B-sized plant, and obviously the forward modelling supports that over the 30-year life. I mean, it's a different asset, but Liddell would be effectively base loading or have protracted periods of shifting, whereas we're putting in a peaker, so it's difficult to say, in terms of a percentage of the market. But yeah, absolutely, our modelling clearly shows that there's an economic benefit of doing it. How much room there is for additional gas-fired generation in New South Wales, I couldn't speculate at the moment.
Thank you, Jihad. Any other questions? Nope, not missing anyone. Great, well, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Okay, so now thank you so much to EnergyAustralia for those fantastic presentations. I would now like to hand the mic over to Emilio Salucci, who is the i3net chairman, to close the event.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. What a wonderful morning, and very informative, and I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out. I know everybody's busy. A full room again, which is excellent, and the home of one of our corporate partners at BSL at the Visitor Centre. So thank you once again for everybody for coming out. Thank you to our Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Tanya Brown. Thank you for giving our opening speech, and it'd be great to see a bit more of our Lord Mayor here too. So I know you're very busy, but it'd be great to see you. To the EnergyAustralia team, thank you for the information you shared today. Thank you to Ivan and Paul for giving us an insight on what's happening with the ongoing Tallawarra A and also Tallawarra B project upcoming. Sarah, thank you for helping Bianca prepare for today, so thank you very much. One of the things I was just talking to Ivan about is with Tallawarra A about resourcing on shutdowns. As we know, all the local people here, when you're involved in BlueScope and coal terminals and grain corp and the mines around here, that everybody likes to have a shutdown at the same time. And sometimes, as we all know, we all struggle for labour and resources. So it's something that we develop a shutdown plan there at Ventia that we distribute to all our clients around the area. A perfect example, BlueScope next week, I've got the hot strip mill down, and that's down for 2 days, and MCL is down for 5 days. So if you're someone on a casual pool, where do you think you're going to go? So that's the challenges we have, but I'll be sharing that with Ivan, so he can have a look and put his planning into work, knowing what else is coming up. And at the same time, Port Kembla Coal Terminal is down next week as well. So it's the struggles that we have. Thank you once again to Ray and Debbie from our wonderful security guards, Illawarra security guards, for coming out and doing the temperature checks and also asking a few important questions today. So thank you very much to Ray and Debbie. A special thanks to all our members and corporate partners. Without your commitment, this network wouldn't be what it is today. And just want to touch on that. Like Bianca said, this network is growing. It's I've been here for quite a while now, but this network is growing very, very nicely. And it's not all about growth. It's about what the i3net can give to our members and corporate partners. And that's something that's always stayed with me through my my journey with the i3net. It's what we, the responsibility we have in the area and the region to give back to our members and corporate partners. And you'll be seeing a lot more of exclusive members only and corporate partners events such as this one. There's another one planned in this room towards the end of the year with BlueScope Steel, where we're going to do another town hall with them, and we'll get an insight of what's happening with number 6 blast furnace there. But it's important that we don't lose sight of what we're here for, and that is to give back to our members and corporate partners. And by doing events like this, this is the way we can do it. But like I've always said, we can't do it all. We can't do it all. We'll get the people in the room, we'll get the people to present, but then it's up to each and every one of us to put that pitch forward, get them business cards out, as I said plenty of times, and come up and network, because that's where you're going to get the bang for the buck, okay? I'd like to acknowledge our great board, David Bridge, BPS, our Deputy Chair, Dave Apollo, our Treasurer, KPMG, Jim Allen from Soldo Engineering, Lisa Boylerveld, DBC Group, Maya Ristevski, iStaff Australia, Mark Grimson, Wollongong City Council, and Zara Sharbezian from University of Wollongong. I am trying with that surname, Zara, and I'll get it. What was that better? Thank you, thank you. Well done. Also, our pipeline of works that's coming up. I've spoke about these previously. So number 6 blast furnace, that's getting some real heat on at the moment. My office is next door to the warehouse where everything's going to get stored there. So Paul Lackerstein, my manager, and myself, we gives us a bit of through the window. We can see movement in the Shinagawa building, which Dave Bridge knows very well as well. With making room for long lead items that are starting to get procured. So that's a very exciting project. The reline of number 6 blast furnace. We spoke about Tallawarra B project, the gas plant that's getting built for AIE as well, and they're talking about a power station there as well. All the work that we're doing with hydrogen. So it's exciting times for this region, very, very exciting times. And I've said it before, you know, I have not seen a pipeline this robust. We can have blue sky stuff, plenty of blue sky. There's blue sky, I think there's blue sky out there at the moment. But there's plenty of blue sky that we talk about that are years away. But these are real opportunities that are on the floor now. So let's all get a part of it. We've got the great skill sets here. I've always said we need to train more people. We need to get together with the TAFE. We need to get together with the university. We need to train more people, more apprentices, more engineers, and we need to do that together. Because if we don't, we're not getting any younger, and we need the new people to come into this room and start talking about the future. And we need to get collaboration with the TAFE, with the university, and make this happen. Another thing that the i3net's working on is how we can support these projects and be the funnel of the resourcing levelling for these projects and supporting them at the start. Dave Bridge will tell you plenty of times, you've got to invest in the planning of projects, and we want to, and the i3net want to be at the forefront of that. and that's to support these projects, get off the ground at a timely manner and make sure that we're not flying in too many people to do these projects, but we can do it locally. On that note, don't rush off. We've got this room to about 10:30. Please network, get them business cards out, and thank you very much for your support, because without people in this room, the i3net will not survive. So thank you. Lucky door prize, Bianca. Rodney Brown. Thank you. Yeah, I would have went for that one too.
The second one was Wodek from Corgas.
Wodek from Corgas. You won a prize.
A very nice red or a very nice champagne? Okay, one more. Oh, Doug Ellis on his first day. Doug Ellis from DBC Group.
Well done, Doug. Good to see you again. Is that it? Okay, and please put your hands together for Bianca Perry, our CEO, for all the organisations she's done to put this together. Thank you very much, and enjoy the next hour or so just networking and get them business cards out. Thank you.